The central atrium of Nexus Station glowed with the blue-green luminescence of biogenic lighting, making Juno's purple skin shimmer as she examined the cultural exhibition. 3 cycles of diplomatic service as a Nilarian representative had taught her that humans were endlessly fascinated by her people's astronomical naming traditions. "So you're saying each Nilarian carries an entire star pattern as their true name?" asked Finn Barrett, the human cartographer who'd been assigned as her liaison for the interspecies summit. "Not just any star pattern," Juno replied, her violet eyes reflecting the holographic display between them. "A cosmic song, the precise harmonic arrangement of celestial bodies present at our birth moment." She smiled, revealing teeth that gleamed with a pearlescent quality against her lavender lips. "Your human names are so? Stationary. Thomas, William, Finn." He laughed, running a hand through his copper-brown hair. "Is that mockery I detect, Ambassador Juno?" "Simply observation," she said, though her expression carried playful mischief. Finn Barrett intrigued her more than she cared to admit. Unlike most humans who treated her with careful diplomatic distance, he spoke to her as an equal, with genuine curiosity rather than political calculation. The station hummed around them, an artificial world suspended between star systems, neutral territory where species from across the quadrant gathered for this centennial exchange of knowledge. Juno's flowing robes, woven with threads that captured and reflected ambient light, trailed behind her as they moved to a quieter corner of the exhibition hall. "You know," she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "there's an ancient tradition among my people. If an outsider somehow manages to pronounce a Nilarian's true name correctly, which has never happened, they would be bound by cosmic law to that person." Finn raised an eyebrow, his hazel eyes sparkling with interest. "Bound, as in marriage." "More profound than your human concept of marriage," Juno clarified, enjoying his fascination. "A binding of souls across time and space, but it's merely theoretical. Your vocal structures can't perceive the multitonal harmonies that compose our names, let alone reproduce them." "That sounds like a challenge," Finn replied, leaning against the crystalline railing overlooking the station's lower levels. Juno laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I assure you, it's impossible. The frequencies extend beyond human auditory range, and the pattern contains mathematical relationships your brains aren't wired to process." "Perhaps," he conceded with a smile that suggested he wasn't entirely convinced, "but humans have a habit of accomplishing the impossible." Their conversation was interrupted by a station-wide announcement regarding the next scheduled presentation. Diplomats and scientists from 24 worlds began moving toward the main auditorium. "We should join the others," Juno said, gesturing toward the gathering crowd. Finn nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on her face. "Before we go, would you tell me your true name? Just once. I promise not to bind you to me against your will," he added with a wink. She should have refused. Protocol dictated that true names were shared only in sacred ceremonies, not casually with foreign diplomats during cultural exchanges. Yet something about his earnest curiosity compelled her. "Very well," she agreed, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. "But remember, this is merely educational." Juno closed her eyes, centering herself. Then, from deep within her chest came a sound unlike anything human vocal cords could produce. A complex, multi-layered harmonic that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It rippled through the air like visible sound waves, each note precisely calibrated to cosmic constants that defined her existence. When she finished, she opened her eyes, expecting to see Finn's usual look of fascinated bewilderment that humans typically wore when witnessing Nilarian customs. Instead, he was completely still, his expression unreadable. "That was," he began, then paused, considering his words carefully. "That was beautiful." Juno inclined her head in acknowledgement. "It's the mathematical pattern of creation that coincided with my birth. Every Nilarian's name is unique, a personal constellation of sound." They walked in comfortable silence toward the auditorium, joining the flow of diverse beings from across the known galaxy. The presentation, a demonstration of new translational technology, proceeded without incident, though Juno found her attention wandering repeatedly to the human beside her. When the session concluded 2 hours later, Finn suggested they visit the station's observation deck. "The Perseus arm is visible from this position," he explained as they entered the dimly lit space dominated by a massive viewport. And I've always found stargazing makes diplomatic discussions more palatable. Juno smiled, appreciating his candor. You're surprisingly forthright for a diplomat. I'm a cartographer first, he reminded her. Diplomacy is just a convenient excuse to map new territories. They stood side by side, watching the slow dance of distant stars. The viewport's anti-radiation coating gave the cosmos a slightly purple tinge, not unlike Juno's skin. Your people navigate by these patterns? Finn observed, not quite a question. We do. Each constellation tells a story, reveals a path. She turned toward him. What do you see when you look at them? Possibility, he answered without hesitation. Each one a world waiting to be discovered. Something in his voice made her pulse quicken slightly. Before she could respond, he turned to face her fully. Juno, he said softly, then paused, seeming to gather his courage. I hope you won't think me presumptuous. And then, without warning, he opened his mouth and produced a sound that should have been physically impossible for him to make. A perfect replication of the harmonic pattern she had shared with him earlier. Every frequency, every mathematical relationship, every subtle vibration that constituted her true name resonated through the observation deck. Juno froze, her violet eyes widening in shock as the cosmic constants that defined her existence echoed back to her from human lips. How, she whispered when the last note faded, that's impossible. Finn looked almost apologetic. Project Resonance. I was part of an experimental program, neural enhancements designed to help humans perceive and reproduce frequencies beyond our natural range. It was meant to improve cross-species communication, especially with auditory-dependent cultures. You spoke my true name, Juno said, struggling to process the implications. According to traditions thousands of years old, they were now bound, their fates irrevocably intertwined across the cosmos. Before Finn could respond, the observation deck trembled violently. Emergency lighting flashed on, bathing everything in harsh red. Attention all personnel, came the station commander's voice over the communication system. We are under attack by unidentified vessels. This is not a drill. Proceed to evacuation points immediately. Another impact rocked the station, stronger this time. Through the viewport, Juno could see the flashes of weapons fire against the backdrop of stars. We need to get to the diplomatic shuttles, she said, already moving toward the exit. Finn caught her arm gently. Juno, about what just happened. Later, she interrupted, though her mind was racing with the implications. Right now, we need to survive. As they rushed through corridors filling with panicked beings from 24 worlds, neither could have guessed how profoundly that moment of connection would alter not only their lives, but potentially the future of their respective species. The universe, it seemed, had plans of its own. Evasive maneuvers, Finn shouted, his hands flying across the shuttle's controls as another blast from the pursuing Dren vessel grazed their shields. The diplomatic vessel shuddered violently, sending Juno stumbling against the cockpit wall. Shields at 38%, she reported, quickly regaining her balance and sliding into the co-pilot's seat. Engine core temperature rising. 3 hours had passed since they'd escaped the chaos of Nexus Station. The attack had come without warning, the xenophobic Dren collective emerging from stealth positions to rain destruction upon the multicultural gathering. In the pandemonium, Juno and Finn had been separated from the other evacuees, forced to commandeer this undersized diplomatic shuttle meant for short-range travel. Finn guided the vessel into the dense asteroid field at the edge of the Strato system, his concentration absolute as he navigated the treacherous path. His neural enhancements, the same ones that had allowed him to reproduce Juno's true name, gave him marginally faster reaction times, a small advantage that might mean the difference between survival and obliteration. Can we send a distress signal? He asked, narrowly avoiding collision with a tumbling rock formation. Juno's purple fingers danced across the communication panel. Not without revealing our position. The Dren use quantum interceptors. Any transmission would give us away instantly. The pursuing vessel fired again, a glancing blow that sent their shuttle spinning. Finn fought the controls, stabilizing their trajectory before diving deeper into the asteroid field. We can't outrun them forever, Juno said, her voice steady despite the dire circumstances. This shuttle wasn't designed for extended flights, let alone combat situations. Finn's eyes scanned the navigation display, searching for options. There, he said, pointing to a particularly dense cluster of asteroids. If we can reach that formation, we might be able to hide in one of the larger bodies. Some of these contain iron-nickel cores that should mask our thermal signature. They plunged toward the asteroid cluster, weaving through increasingly narrow gaps between the spinning rocks. The Dren ship, larger and less maneuverable, fell back slightly but continued its relentless pursuit. Almost there, Finn muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he executed a series of tight turns. When I give the word, cut all non-essential systems, anything that generates a detectable signature. Juno nodded, her fingers poised over the control panel. As they approached a massive, cratered asteroid nearly a kilometer across, Finn spotted what he was looking for, a deep crevasse running along its shadowed side. Now, he called, angling the shuttle sharply downward. Juno immediately began shutting down systems as they slipped into the narrow fissure, the shuttle's wings nearly scraping the rocky walls. Within seconds, they were enveloped in darkness, the only illumination coming from essential display panels casting a soft glow over their faces. They sat in tense silence, barely breathing as the Dren vessel passed overhead. Minutes stretched like hours until finally, the scanner showed their pursuer moving away, continuing its search elsewhere in the asteroid field. "They'll be back," Juno said quietly, her violet eyes reflecting the dim blue light of the console. "The Dren are nothing if not persistent." Finn released a long breath, allowing himself to relax marginally. "We bought ourselves some time at least." He turned to her, concern etched across his features. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though Finn noticed her wince slightly as she shifted in her seat. "Just bruised, nothing serious." The cramped cockpit suddenly felt even smaller as they both became acutely aware of their isolation. Two beings from different worlds, literally trapped between rocks and hard places. "So," Finn said after a moment, "I think we need to discuss what happened before the attack." Juno's expression grew guarded. "You reproduced my true name, a feat supposedly impossible for non-Nalarians." "I didn't mean to upset you," he said gently. "I was simply curious if it could be done. The implications didn't occur to me until after." "The binding," she finished for him. "According to my people's oldest traditions, we are now cosmically entangled," he suggested, with a small smile that didn't quite mask his uncertainty. Despite their precarious situation, Juno found herself returning the smile. "That's one way of putting it," she sighed, leaning back in her seat. "Though I suspect the Nalarian High Council will have more bureaucratic terminology when they learn of this incident." "If they learn of it," Finn pointed out. "First, we need to survive the Dren and find our way back to civilized space." He initiated a system diagnostic, assessing the shuttle's condition. The results weren't encouraging: fuel reserves at 42%, thermal regulators damaged, and long-range communications offline. They could maintain life support for perhaps 3 days if they were careful. "We should rest while we can," he suggested. "The Dren will eventually widen their search pattern. When they do, we'll need to be ready to move." They retreated to the shuttle's small crew compartment, barely large enough for 2 narrow bunks set into opposite walls. As they settled in for an uneasy rest period, Juno found herself studying Finn's profile in the dim emergency lighting. "Why were you really part of Project Resonance?" she asked suddenly. "Neural enhancement is significant modification for merely improving communication." Finn was quiet for so long that Juno thought he might have fallen asleep. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "My parents were xenolinguists," he explained. "They spent their lives studying communication between species, believing it was the key to lasting peace in the quadrant." He turned to face her. "They died during the Centauri conflict. Miscommunication led to their ship being identified as hostile by Teshan defense systems." "I'm sorry," Juno said softly. "When Project Resonance was announced, I volunteered immediately. The idea of never again losing lives to misunderstanding." He shrugged. It seemed like a fitting tribute to their work. The vulnerability in his admission touched something in Juno. Here in the darkness, cut off from their respective worlds, the diplomatic facades they'd both maintained seemed suddenly unnecessary. "The binding tradition," she said after a thoughtful pause. "It's not just symbolic, you know. Nilarians believe that when two souls recognize each other completely, as happens when one truly knows another's essence, their true name, a quantum entanglement occurs at the subatomic level. You're saying it's physically real? Finn asked, intrigued. According to our science, yes, though it's never been observed between species before, she hesitated. There might be consequences we can't predict. Before Finn could respond, a soft chime from the cockpit drew their attention. They rushed back to the controls to find an alert flashing on the biological scanner. That's odd, Finn murmured, examining the readout. It's detecting a genetic anomaly. Juno leaned closer, her expression shifting from confusion to shock as she interpreted the data. That's impossible, she whispered. What is it? Finn asked, concerned by her reaction. According to this, she said slowly, my biochemistry is undergoing some form of adaptation. She met his gaze, her violet eyes wide. It appears to be responding to your genetic markers, specifically the enhanced neural patterns from Project Resonance. Finn stared at the display, trying to understand the implications. Are you saying our biology is interacting somehow? More than that, Juno confirmed, her voice barely audible. I carry what my people call the stellar echo, a rare genetic sequence that appears in only one Nilarian per generation. It's said to contain the potential for adaptive evolution, though it's always been considered theoretical. She pointed to a particular pattern on the display. This suggests the echo is actively responding to your neural modifications, creating a bridge between our genetic codes that shouldn't be possible. The scanner chimed again, this time with a more urgent tone. New data scrolled across the screen, causing both of them to fall silent in astonishment. That can't be right, Finn finally said, running the diagnostic again to confirm the reading. But the result remained unchanged. Juno's reproductive system was showing early signs of activity that the computer identified as consistent with the initial stages of pregnancy, a scientific impossibility given the fundamental differences between their species. The binding, Juno breathed. The ancient texts spoke of this, but they were considered myths, stories of star-crossed lovers whose souls were so perfectly aligned that creation itself bent to accommodate their union. Finn looked at her, his expression a mixture of disbelief and wonder. Are you saying that my speaking your true name somehow triggered a biological response that's allowing cross-species reproduction? It sounds absurd when you put it that way, she admitted. And yet, before they could process this extraordinary development, the shuttle's proximity alert blared. The scanner showed the Dren vessel returning, its search pattern bringing it dangerously close to their hiding place. They've narrowed the search area, Finn said grimly, powering up the essential systems. We need to move now. As they prepared the shuttle for emergency departure, Juno placed a protective hand over her abdomen, where something impossible had begun to grow. A new life that bridged two worlds in ways neither science nor tradition had anticipated. The amber sun of Tavis cast long shadows across the settlement of Halcyon Vale, a frontier outpost on the edge of disputed space. Rain pattered against the circular windows of the dwelling where Juno sat, watching water trails create abstract patterns on the glass. Her purple skin had taken on a deeper, almost iridescent quality in recent weeks, a visible marker of the remarkable changes occurring within her body. The prenatal supplements Ven provided seemed to be helping, Finn observed, entering the room with 2 steaming mugs of spiced tea. 58 days had passed since their narrow escape from the Dren Collective, though it felt like a lifetime ago. Juno accepted the mug gratefully, her hands cradling the warmth. The nausea has subsided at least, she agreed, though I doubt Ven's medical training included interspecies pregnancies. Healer Ven, a tall, green-skinned Tavusian with 6-fingered hands and remarkable intuition, had been the first to welcome them when they'd crash-landed their failing shuttle on the outskirts of the settlement. Instead of reporting them to planetary authorities, she had quietly integrated them into Halcyon Vale's tight-knit community of refugees and outcasts, beings from across the quadrant seeking escape from oppressive regimes or simply a fresh start beyond the reach of centralized government. Ven says what's happening with you defies conventional medicine anyway, Finn reminded her, settling beside her on the cushioned window seat. Your pregnancy is progressing at nearly 3 times the normal Nilarian rate. Juno nodded, one hand unconsciously moving to the pronounced swell of her abdomen. What should have taken 15 standard months was advancing at breathtaking speed, her body racing to nurture the unprecedented life within. The binding must have catalyzed genetic adaptations that would normally take generations to evolve, she mused, not for the first time. My stellar echo, responding to your neural enhancements in ways neither of our sciences anticipated. A gentle kick from within interrupted her thoughts, bringing a startled laugh to her lips. She's active today, Juno said, taking Finn's hand and placing it where their daughter, the scans had confirmed the gender 2 weeks prior, continued her acrobatics. The wonder on Finn's face, as he felt the movement, never diminished. For a cartographer who had spent his life mapping the physical world, the uncharted territory of impending fatherhood represented his greatest exploration yet. I still can't quite believe it, he admitted softly. That we created something so, he trailed off, words inadequate to express the miracle unfolding beneath his palm. Impossible, Juno suggested with a smile. Yet here she is, rewriting what we thought we knew about genetic compatibility. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Finn tensed immediately, years of diplomatic training having conditioned him to expect trouble. He relaxed slightly when the distinctive pattern, 3 quick taps followed by 2 slower ones, identified their visitor as friendly. Teased Navarro entered without waiting for acknowledgement, his dark eyes scanning the room with habitual vigilance. The former mercenary had appointed himself their unofficial protector soon after their arrival, recognizing the potential value and danger of Juno's unique condition. We've got movement at the northern sensor perimeter, he announced without preamble, his perpetual frown deepening the scar that bisected his left eyebrow. 3 unmarked shuttles on approach vectoring. Dren, Finn asked, immediately rising. Not their configuration, Teased replied. These are sleeker, stealth-capable. His expression darkened further. They look like retrieval vessels. Juno and Finn exchanged alarmed glances. They had known this day might come, had prepared for it, but the reality still hit with the force of a gravity well. How long? Juno asked, her voice steady despite the fear coiling in her chest. 90 minutes, maybe less. Teased shifted his weight, hand resting on the blaster at his hip. Ven's activating the underground network. We need to move you to the backup location before they establish a search grid. As Finn gathered their essential belongings, medical supplies, identity documents, emergency rations, Juno activated the small quantum transmitter they'd acquired through Halcyon Vale's shadowy commerce channels. The device, illegal in most civilized systems due to its ability to penetrate standard communication blocks, connected to a secure frequency they'd established weeks earlier. Oracle, this is Stardust, she said, using the code names they'd chosen for security. The harvest approaches ahead of schedule. Confirm receipt. After a brief pause filled with static, a familiar voice responded. Stardust, Oracle confirms. Contingency Tempest is now active. Proceed to Waypoint Nova. Juno terminated the connection, relief softening her features momentarily. Their allies within the underground resistance, a loosely connected network of beings opposed to governmental overreach, had received their warning and were mobilizing resources. Vala's gathering the others, Teased informed them, referring to his partner, an ex-military tactician whose strategic brilliance had saved countless refugees. We'll create diversions at multiple points to confuse their tracking systems. Within 20 minutes, they were moving through Halcyon Vale's concealed tunnel system, a network of passages originally created by Tavis's native burrowing creatures and expanded by the settlement's inhabitants. Juno moved more slowly than she would have liked, her altered center of gravity and the precious cargo she carried demanding caution. You okay? Finn asked softly, his hand supporting her elbow as they navigated a particularly steep section. Just wishing our daughter had timed her development better, Juno replied with a wry smile that didn't quite mask her discomfort. A high-speed escape wasn't in my birth plan. Finn squeezed her hand gently. She's already showing your stubborn streak, doing things on her own schedule. Their path led them to a concealed exit half a kilometer from the settlement's edge, emerging into a dense grove of Tavis's distinctive spiral-trunk trees. The amber sunlight filtered through crimson leaves, casting everything in a warm glow that belied the danger they faced. Healer Ven awaited them, her green skin camouflaging perfectly among the foliage. Beside her stood Lisha, a young human woman who had escaped indentured service on a mining colony 3 cycles ago and now served as one of Halcyon Vale's most skilled mechanics. "The Land Cruiser is prepped," Lisha informed them, gesturing toward a rugged vehicle partially hidden beneath camouflage netting. "I've modified the engine signature to read as agricultural equipment on standard scanners. And I've packed additional medical supplies," Ven added, her melodic voice carrying undertones of concern as her gaze assessed Juno's condition, "including specialized formulations for your unique physiology and the child's potential needs." The healer approached Juno, 6-fingered hands moving in practiced patterns as she performed a quick examination. "Your vitals are stable, but the stress of evacuation is elevating your hormonal markers," she observed. "The child's development continues to accelerate. I estimate no more than 14 standard days until birth, possibly fewer given these circumstances." Before Juno could respond, Taileyes emerged from the trees, his expression grim. "We need to move. The vessels have landed at the Central Administrative Complex. They're deploying ground teams." "Who are they?" Finn demanded, helping Juno toward the land cruiser. "Both," Taileyes replied tersely. "Nilarian Conclave operatives and Earth's Interstellar Coalition forces. They're not coordinating, competing retrieval operations." Juno felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. "They're treating our child, as property to be claimed." "Valuable research subjects," Finn agreed bitterly, his jaw tight with anger. "To be studied and potentially weaponized." As they secured themselves in the land cruiser, Lisha slid into the driver's position. "The Highlands offer the best defensive position," she explained, activating the vehicle's systems with practiced efficiency. "There's an abandoned geological research station in the northern ridges, heavily shielded to protect sensitive equipment from Tavis's magnetic storms." "The storms?" Ven interjected, securing a medical kit beside her. "The seasonal pattern indicates a major convergence within the next 36 hours. It would mask your presence completely. No technology can penetrate a Tavusian geomagnetic storm. But it would also cut us off from communication and escape options," Finn noted, concern evident in his voice. "Sometimes isolation is protection," Taileyes countered pragmatically. "If they can't find you, they can't take you." The land cruiser rumbled to life, its electric drive system nearly silent as Lisha guided it through the spiral forest along concealed paths. In the distance, the silhouette of official vehicles could be seen moving toward Halcyon Vale, their sleek designs incongruous against the frontier world's rugged landscape. "They won't get information from our people," Ven assured them, her expression resolute. "Halcyon Vale protects its own. By the time they navigate our bureaucratic resistance and cultural misdirection, you'll be well hidden." As they ascended into the highlands, Tavis's famous terrain gradually shifted from forest to rugged plateaus. The atmosphere thickened with charged particles, early harbingers of the approaching geomagnetic storm. Above them, the amber sun competed with swirling auroras that danced across the upper atmosphere, growing more pronounced with each passing hour. "Beautiful," Juno murmured, watching the celestial display through the land cruiser's viewport. "Like visual representations of my people's true names." Finn followed her gaze, reminded of the observation deck where he had first spoken her cosmic identifier, the catalyst that had set them on this extraordinary path. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly, the question that had lingered unspoken between them. "The binding, everything that followed." Juno turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the auroras above. "How could I regret something that brought forth new life? A child who carries both our worlds within her." She took his hand, placing it once more against the swell of her abdomen where their daughter shifted. "Whatever happens, she exists because you heard the song of my soul and gave it voice. No power in the galaxy can make me regret that miracle." Their moment of connection was interrupted as the land cruiser suddenly lurched, then came to an abrupt stop. "Problem?" Taileyes asked, instantly alert. Lisha frowned at the control panel. "The electromagnetic interference is stronger than anticipated. It's affecting the drive systems." Outside, the auroras had intensified dramatically, casting otherworldly patterns across the rocky landscape. The approaching storm was accelerating, drawn by unusual solar activity. "We're still 10 kilometers from the research station," Ven noted with concern. Before they could formulate an alternative plan, Juno gasped sharply, one hand flying to her abdomen as a ripple of movement visibly passed across it. Her purple skin paled to lavender, beads of moisture appearing along her hairline. "Juno?" Finn questioned anxiously, recognizing the signs. Healer Ven was already moving, her diagnostic tools in hand. "The stress, the electromagnetic interference, they're triggering physiological responses," she confirmed after a brief examination. "The birth process has begun." Outside, the storm continued to gather strength, electric tendrils reaching down from the darkening sky to touch the highland ridges. Around them, the very air seemed charged with potential energy, nature's power surging in synchronicity with the unprecedented life preparing to enter the world. "It seems," Juno said with remarkable composure despite the contraction still causing her to grip Finn's hand tightly, "that our daughter has indeed decided to follow her own timeline." As Ven and Leisha transformed the cramped rear section of the Land Cruiser into a makeshift berthing area, Finn found himself caught between terror and awe. They were stranded on a frontier world, pursued by two governments, at the mercy of one of the sector's most powerful natural phenomena, and about to welcome a child whose very existence challenged the understood laws of biology. The first major lightning strike illuminated the highlands in blinding white light, followed by thunder that shook the Land Cruiser. In that flash, Finn saw determination in Juno's eyes that matched the strength of the storm around them. "Find a shelter," she told Talais, her voice steady despite another contraction building. "Our daughter will be born on solid ground, not in a vehicle." As the storm descended in earnest, their small group faced the dual challenges of finding immediate shelter and preparing for the birth of a child unlike any the galaxy had seen before, a living bridge between worlds, arriving amid the fury and beauty of a planetary tempest. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. 3.7 Sonnet.